But there's a 98% success rate where nature is working, nature is doing well. But humans, the same study concluded, humans, instead of having a 98% success rate, we have a 98% failure rate. Hi, I'm Liam Naden, and welcome to my podcast, Let Yourself Off the Hook. As someone who has studied success for decades, I have found the formula for achieving your dreams and goals, and it's all to do with how you use your brain. Each week on my show, I will provide you with the tools, resources, and expertise to utilize your brain to its ultimate potential and remove the barriers to your success. And as you will discover, true success in every area of your life only comes when you let yourself off the hook. When you saw the title of this episode, Tapping into Natural Success, I wonder what you actually thought about that, what your reaction was. Were you thinking, hang on a second, there's no such thing as natural success. Everyone knows success comes through struggle and hard work, putting in a lot of effort, learning new things, becoming more skilled at something, or even at many things. There's no such thing as natural success. Or another thought you might have had would be, well, natural success, that sounds like someone in denial, someone saying, oh, I'm naturally successful, but they're not really. They're just kidding themselves, and they don't have a happy or enjoyable life, or maybe they're not really achieving very much. So maybe you might think natural success is settling for something way below your potential and not really having a very fulfilling life. But the thing is, if you were to think those things, and most people, or many people, when I talk about natural success and letting yourself off the hook, when I mention that those are the reactions of many people. But here's the thing, you've experienced natural success for yourself, and you've seen it all around you. Because have you ever had the experience where you suddenly knew the right thing to do? Maybe you've been wrestling with a problem for weeks or days, and you just couldn't figure out the right answer. You didn't know, you had a big decision to make, and you didn't know which way to, or what you should do about it. And maybe you, as I say, you wrestled with this idea for days or even weeks, and it kept you awake at night, and you spent a lot of your waking time trying to figure out what to do, and maybe writing a list or writing a pros and cons and trying to come up with it. You might have even been in discussions with other people about what to do. And you had all this information. Maybe you went online looking for ideas on how to help you make the right decision. And then all of a sudden, one morning you woke up, or you were doing something else completely different, and suddenly you had a moment of insight. And something clicked, and you saw exactly the right thing to do. Or have you ever had the experience where something just happened out of the blue, and it turned out to be the right thing? You know, this sort of thing happens to me all the time, and it really got to the point a few years ago where it happened so often, I thought there has to be more to this than luck and coincidence. You know, the other day I was scheduled to have a meeting with somebody, and about 5 minutes before the meeting, they contacted me and cancelled and said, unfortunately, they couldn't make it. And I thought, well, that's a bit of a shame because I'd prepared so much for the meeting. But what was really interesting was after that, a whole lot more information started to come to me that was relevant to what I was going to talk to that person about in the meeting. And it was new information that if I didn't have it, the meeting would have gone in a different direction, and it would have been pretty much a waste of time, and I would have made a lot of wrong decisions as a result of that. So it was almost, I felt, gosh, there's something happening here. Is this just a coincidence that I didn't have that meeting, that for some reason it was cancelled, when it turned out it was just as well that it was cancelled? It was the best thing to have happened. So maybe you've had an experience like that, where something really unexpected happened that turned out to be the right thing. So what's causing this? Is this just coincidence? Is it luck? When you come up with an idea out of the blue, is it just the heavens aligning and due to all of your work or whatever, you've come up with the right idea? Or is there something else actually happening entirely? And, somebody once said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And if you really think about it, most of the significant things that happen in your life, like the person that you meet, or the job that you get, or the career that you end up going down, or the place where you live, most of these really important things that happen to you, the life-changing, the life-shaping experiences, are not things that you've planned for in advance. I mean, you didn't sit down the day before you met the person you ended up marrying and say, tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm going to meet a person, and this is their name, and this is what they're going to look like, and this is going to be their characteristics, and I'm going to marry them, and we're going to have how many children, and we're going to do this. You didn't plan all that in advance. You didn't see it in advance. You didn't visualize it. You didn't write it on a goals list, but somehow it all showed up. So what was that? Well, that is natural success. There's a natural intelligence that seems to be controlling your life, and those are examples of it. And here's another way that you experience natural success, or you see natural success all the time, and that is when you look around nature. Look at any animal, or a bird, or an insect, or anything living, a plant, and if you look really closely, you see success. You see it existing and living perfectly. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's not struggling. It's not struggling to find food. It's not struggling to find shelter. It's just being itself. It's being successful. So when you really look at it, you realize there is a natural success. There is a natural mechanism and order to everything. And you've tapped into that from time to time when you felt in the flow, in the zone, where things were going well, when things were falling into place, when good things were happening to you. When, in other words, when you were feeling successful, and it felt natural. It didn't come from struggle and hard work and problems and stress and anxiety. It just happened, and it was the right thing. Well, it turns out that we are all wired for success. There is such a thing as this natural success, and what we want to know is how can we tap into it whenever we want to? Because that's the key. Rather than it just happening in random moments, just occasionally, we want to know how we can tap into it and use it all the time. Because when you look at nature, you see that nature is using it all the time. Someone recently did a very interesting study, and they came to the conclusion that the natural world is 98% successful. In other words, 98% of all living things are being the best that they can be and thriving. And the only things that aren't thriving are 2%, where maybe a tree is planted in the wrong place, or there's a drought, so animals starve. But there's a 98% success rate where nature is working, nature is doing well. But humans, the same study concluded, humans, instead of having a 98% success rate, we have a 98% failure rate. And when you really think about it, how many people are happy? How many people would say that their life is working really well, that they're thriving, that everything is falling into place, and that they feel they're in the right place doing the right thing? Very, very few, maybe 2%. And maybe in your own life, only 2% of the time you feel that you're in control of what's going on in your life and you're feeling really good. So why is that? Why are we the opposite to everything else in nature? Well, this is a question that I mulled over for quite a long time. And I came to realize that it's because somehow we're not using nature and our own nature in the right way. We're fighting against it. And the more I looked into this, the more I realized that we've all forgotten how to use or how to live in a natural state. We've all been conditioned, really from birth, to create habits that go against nature, that create stress, create struggle. So what we need to do is learn new habits, learn how we really operate on a natural level and tap into the natural success in that way. One really important thing to realize about nature, and again, you notice this when you look around and when you observe nature, really for anything more than a fleeting second, which unfortunately is what most people do. Very few of us really observe what's going on in the natural world. But when you look at it for any period of time, you realize that everything is there for one purpose. And in fact, all of biological science says this is the purpose of life, all life, including our own life. And that number one purpose is simply to survive. That is what every living thing is wired to do, to the best of its ability to survive. So how does that do that? Or why does it do that? Well, obviously it's so that the species that it belongs to continues to survive as well. So every natural thing is playing its part to try to ensure the survival of the species. But the best way it can do that is by it being its best. In other words, it being successful. Because it's only when something is successful that it has the greatest chance to survive. So that must be your purpose as well, because you and I, we're part of the natural world. We're part of a species called the human race. We're biological, and we have the same biological purpose and the same biological wiring to be the best that we can be so that we have the greatest chance for survival, so that we have the greatest ability to contribute to the survival of our species, the human species. And of course, for us humans, being the best that we can be, giving ourselves the greatest chance for survival, doesn't just mean to be our best physically. No, it's not just physical, it's also being our best mentally and emotionally. Because when you're feeling good, and you'll know this, when you're feeling good, when you're feeling happy, in other words, mentally and emotionally at your best, that's when you're creative, that's when you're imaginative, that's when you are able and willing and motivated to contribute, not only to your own well-being, but to the well-being of others. So it's really, really important to realize that you are biologically wired for success, to give you the greatest chance for survival, but that means to be happy. You're biologically wired to be happy. The happier you are, the greater your chance for survival. Therefore, the greater your biological success. So just coming back to this natural success state that I was talking about earlier, if such a thing exists, and we know it does, how can we tap into it more often? How can we live in that natural state? How can we use it at will? Wouldn't it be great to be able to create good circumstances for ourselves? Luck. Wouldn't it be great to be able to create coincidence? Have good things happen to us without us having to struggle and try and figure stuff out and work things out? Because most of the time, I'm sure you've found out, the more you struggle and try and get stressed about something, the more likely you are to do the wrong thing, to make mistakes. And I did this for so many years of my life. I'd stress and struggle, and then I'd end up doing the wrong thing. And I'd say to myself, why did I do that? It was such a dumb thing to do. Even when I was doing it, I'd often deep down think, this isn't right. This is a dumb thing to do. But I'd cover those thoughts up with, oh, I'm desperate. I've got to make it happen. I'll find a way to make it happen. It's the best thing I can think of right now, so I'll just do it, because action is better than not doing anything. It's better to do something. So I made tons of mistakes. And of course, that idea that to do something is better than doing nothing is not true either, is it? Because how much of our time, used to be most of my time, was spent cleaning up messes from mistakes that I'd made, that if I'd really stopped and hadn't been stressed about having to make a decision, and therefore not made the wrong decision, I wouldn't have had to spend so much time cleaning up the mess afterwards. In other words, if I'd given it some time and space and not rushed into doing what turned out to be the wrong thing through stress and struggle and anxiety, and overall through, and the main thing is through fear and worry, that if I didn't do something, that things would not work out right. And the opposite actually happened. I think the more I did, the worse things turned out. So how do we tap into this natural success that is all around us and is actually a part of who we are? Well, the first thing to do is to realize that you can tap into that natural success, that it isn't just coincidence, and that it's not just sometimes at random in your life that you're going to be able to feel good, or that you have no control over being able to suddenly see the right decision to make about something, or suddenly get an insight or a new idea, or maybe even see a new opportunity that comes along, or to feel motivated in a particular way. Rather than thinking, well, those are just random events that you have no control over, you need to acknowledge that they are a part of your wiring, and you can actually create those situations and those things within you. In fact, you can learn to create new habits where that's your natural state, where being clear in your thinking, making the right decisions, avoiding making the wrong decisions, seeing the right things to do, being motivated, being inspired, being creative, coming up with new things that other people haven't thought of before, coming up with creative solutions and ideas on how to solve problems. When you acknowledge that this can be your natural creative state, that's the first really important step. You do have power and control to be able to create this state. And in fact, we call this, we have a name for this particular state. We call it being in the flow, or being in the zone. That's that state of feeling you're in the right place at the right time. Everything is working for you as efficiently and perfectly as it should in that moment. So when you know you can create that state, that you have the power and control over it actually happening in your life on a very frequent basis, then all you need to do is to figure out what actually controls that and how you can use it. And it turns out there is a mechanism that controls that, and you learn how to use it. In fact, it's a mechanism that you're already using, but you're using it in a different way. And the way you're using it, and the way all of us, or most people are using it, is the wrong way, and it's not giving us the results we want. In fact, what it creates when you use it the wrong way is that's the source of problems in your life, is using this particular success mechanism in the opposite way so that it's not creating success for you. And the mechanism I'm referring to is, of course, your brain. Now, if you look at the natural world, what does every living thing have in common? They all have a brain. We have a brain. And what's the purpose of a brain? It's to manage the organism so that it has the greatest chance for survival. It's to manage all of the functions to ensure that they all work as efficiently together as possible to maximize the chances of that organism surviving. That's the purpose of the brain. And it's not just for, as I said earlier, for humans. Remember, us being the best we can be, or having the maximum efficiency giving us the greatest chance for survival, is not just our physical well-being, it's also our mental and emotional well-being as well. So the brain is the mechanism that's designed to make sure not only that you survive physically, but you also survive and thrive mentally and emotionally. In other words, you feel good. And you not only feel good, but you're doing things that make you feel good as well. This is the purpose of the brain. This is what the mechanism exists for. So when you know that, then it simply becomes a question of saying, well, how can I use it? How can I learn how to use it in the right way? Because obviously, for whatever reason, and we're going to get into a lot more detail in these podcasts, what that reason is, but for whatever reason, I'm not using it the right way because I'm not being efficient. I'm not tapping into a natural success that is giving me the greatest chance for survival. In fact, I'm doing the opposite. I'm putting stress on myself, which is reducing my lifespan. And more science is discovering that the cause of disease, most disease, if not all of it, is very strongly related to stress. Because stress, what does that do? It weakens you. It weakens your body. So therefore, it reduces your ability to thrive, to be your best, and to give you the greatest chance for survival. It actually shortens your lifespan. And certainly, as you'll know from stress, when you're feeling stressed and anxious and worried, you're certainly not feeling creative. You're not feeling inspired and excited to do new things and try new things. You're not looking for new opportunities. You're not coming up with new ideas. Very often people, when they get stressed and anxious, this is what depression is about. And what is depression? It stops people from doing things. When people feel unhappy, you're less motivated to do anything. And you're certainly not very motivated to do anything new, to try anything new. Whereas when you feel good and excited and you know that everything is working well, you have no fear about trying new things. So this is why it's so important to understand that you feeling good and using your brain in a way that allows it to make you feel good, using that mechanism is really what life's all about. And when you do that, you tap into natural success. So as I said earlier, we're going to get into a lot more detail about how your brain works and how it brings you natural success, how you can tap into it, and put you in a state which nature has a word for, which is called homeostasis. Homeostasis is a biological term which means the perfect functioning of the organism. And that's your natural state. It's the natural state of all living things, because when an organism is functioning perfectly, then it has the greatest chance for survival and the survival of the species. So as I said, we're going to get into a lot more detail in later episodes about how your brain works and how you can tap into natural success using your brain. But for now, just consider, as you go through your week or your day, just consider a few thoughts about what I've been saying here. And the main one being, look around and think, yes, there is such a thing as natural success. There is a natural order to every living thing. Maybe go and spend 5 minutes in nature and just look at what's going on. Really look. Look at a plant, look at a bird or an animal, and just see how much of, or look at it closely and see how much of it is absolutely perfect, absolutely, quote unquote, successful. It's living in the right environment. It's doing the right things. And it's not doing it with any stress or anxiety. It's just doing everything that it needs to do to give it the greatest chance for survival in that moment. So when you realize that, when you really start to realize that, you realize the only thing stopping you from being a part of that natural success is simply the way you're using the mechanisms of success and the fact that you're not using them in the right way. And that doesn't mean you need to go off and learn a whole lot of new stuff. It doesn't mean you need to get all stressed and struggle and find more information and worry and try and figure it all out, because nature doesn't do that. Your natural state is not to do that. You weren't doing that when you've had the most successful moments of your life, when you had a new idea, when something came along which turned out to be really good for you, when you met that person who contributed to your life, when you had that idea. When things were, in those moments when things were going really well, they were never the result of your stress and struggle. So when you learn to tap into that part of your brain or use your brain in the way that nature has designed it, which is for success, then you're going to see that show up in your own life. And you're going to find your life becomes, like the rest of nature, 98% successful. You're going to be part of the 2% who are successful. And my mission is to turn that 2% into 98%. We all should be successful. And the only thing stopping us, the only thing in our way, is that we've not been taught how to use our natural success mechanism in the right way. So I look forward to sharing more with you about natural success. And here's another clue. It comes from letting yourself off the hook. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you again next time. This is Liam Naden signing off. Thanks for watching. But before you go, there's some action to take. Hit the subscribe and like buttons and leave your thoughts in a comment below. I'd love your feedback. And if you have friends who you think would benefit from this, please share it with them. Thanks again for your support, and stay tuned for more from me, Liam Naden. And remember, you can only reach your full potential when you let yourself off the hook.